Hello mindful foodies, Inga from Health Origins here. So today a slightly different video, a slightly different location. I'm gonna start my 10-part series of intuitive eating according to this lovely book called Intuitive Eating. So there are 10 principles that the authors cover in the book. There's more than that obviously, but they took the 10 principles and talked about the 10 principles, so that's what I'm going to cover in my 10 video series. So let me read the 10 principles to start with, and then we'll start with principle number 1 in this video. So the intuitive eating principles are: reject the diet mentality. Number 2, honor your hunger. Number 3, make peace with food. Number 4, challenge the food police. A clue that's in your head actually. So then number 5, discover the satisfaction factor. Number 6, feel the fullness. Number 7, cope with your emotions with kindness. Number 8, respect your body. Number 9, movement, feel the difference. And number 10, honor your health with gentle nutrition. So these are the 10 principles I'll be going through, and today we want to talk about rejecting the diet mentality. So you are probably well aware that the dieting culture is so pervasive. Wherever you go, it's pervasive, it's everywhere. It's in the gym, it's in your doctor's office, it's on TV, commercials, advertisements, online in general. You're being bombarded with different kind of hacks and gadgets and different foods that are, either fat-free or low in calories. There's, calorie counting apps. There's, you could count your macros, like your carbs, fat or whatever else you eat. It's absolutely everywhere, and it's also quite pervasive within, the culture, as in people encouraging and kind of spreading it out among themselves, so groups of friends, especially ladies, they go to the gym together. They, go on a specific kind of diet, avoiding this or that, or not eating after a certain amount of time. So it's absolutely everywhere. Diet culture is just everywhere. So why it's so important to recognize that, and what damage does it actually do to us. So dieting, you probably know, the usual dieting, as in kind of counting calories, going to the gym, or doing a specific diet, whether it's like milkshakes or something like that for 2 meals and a normal dinner, that kind of thing. So they're all, diets, wherever you find restriction, wherever some foods are eliminated or reduced, that is a diet. So there's a lot of, kind of out there in the open diets, but also there's a lot of pseudo dieting that people might not necessarily realize that is a type of dieting as well. So what could be the types of pseudo dieting? So becoming a vegetarian, vegan, for example, just for the purposes of losing weight. For me personally, that is my lifestyle. I do it for my health, I do it for my animals, because I understand that eating plant foods is the best nutrition for our bodies. That's what our bodies are physically made for. But for people that give up meat, for example, or become vegetarian or vegan just to lose weight, that is still a diet, because you did not shift your mind about these types of foods. In your mind, it's still a food and you're still restricting it. So that is still a diet. Whereas for me, in my mind, those animal products are not foods. I don't consider them foods because they're not foods for our body. So to me, I'm not really restricting myself. I am free to eat any plant food I want, but animal products are not, in my mind, are not classed as food. I don't see them as food. So there is no restriction for me in that kind of respect. So yeah, so do become vegan or vegetarian for the right reasons, because if you are doing it just to lose weight, that is another kind of dieting. It's pseudo dieting. You don't realize that it is a diet. Another sneaky way, people, it's kind of semi-obvious, but some people still don't realize that it is a diet. Counting your calories or macros. So for example, counting how many grams of fat you're eating in a day, how many carbs, especially lately it's been a craze of people limiting carbs, thinking that carbs are what makes you fat. And it couldn't be further from the truth, because carbohydrates, we'll talk about this in later videos, but carbohydrates are your primary source for fuel. It's your primary source that your body uses to fuel for energy, and that's their preferred type of fuel. So people counting and limiting how many carbs they're eating, how much fat they're eating, or just how many calories in total they can have a day, that is still dieting. Another way, it's a pseudo diet when you are eating just safe foods. So I believe in Weight Watchers, they have like free foods or safe foods, like you can eat as much as you want of these foods, so like stuff like celery sticks or carrots, that kind of thing. Maybe some fruits, some vegetables. So eating just safe food. So for example, some people completely limit or eliminate anything that has, say a gram of fat or any kind of fat. So they eat just like fat-free foods, and that is still dieting. Another pseudo dieting is restricting eating at certain times of the day. I actually kind of advocated intermittent fasting, saying that up to that amount, up to that point in time, you shouldn't be eating in the morning, then you eat until about 8 o'clock and then you stop eating from that point. But actually this book is talking that your body doesn't kind of check the clock. If it does, if you feel hungry, it does require more energy. It doesn't matter what time it is. So restricting the times of the day when you eat, even though you're hungry, that is not honoring your body's signals that it's sending you. It is still a kind of diet. Another way people do it is cutting down on portion sizes, for example. I do understand if you're cutting down portions because you have been overeating a lot, which kind of happens quite a bit to me. I still need to find that level of the portion, for me to be full but not over full. So I've been piling up big plates of foods. So if you are cutting down because of you don't want to feel overstuffed or overfull, that's fair enough. But if you're limiting amount of foods for the intention of reducing your calories, then that is a form of dieting. Another way as well, people quell their hunger pangs or hunger feeling with drinking something. So drinking either coffee, tea, or say soda diet drinks or something. Another way that people engage in pseudo dieting activity is if they're trying to quell their hunger by drinking. So whether it's teas, coffees, or diet sodas, for example, like sugar-free diet drinks, that is still a form of dieting, because you're trying to trick your stomach into thinking that you are full, trying to fool your body into switching off your hunger signal by, drinking when you actually are hungry. And yeah, that is another form of pseudo dieting. So it's very sneaky how all of these behaviors are still dieting, even though you might not necessarily think they are, because it's not like a specific diet. But yes, all of these things that I mentioned, just try and think in the kind of in the broad sense. If you are limiting something, if you're cutting out of something, if you're counting something, that is most likely a diet. So yeah, so it is important to catch yourself doing these things, and to first realize that you are still doing dieting behaviors. There's an interesting kind of concept and diagram that's listed in this book, and it's from two scientists. I can't remember the names, but you'll find if you read this book, basically dieter's dilemma. So you feel the need to become slimmer and lose some weight, so you go on a diet. You start restricting yourself, you lose some weight, but in the process you're starting to get all these cravings coming in, and it becomes unbearable. Your body physically sending you signals to eat more because you have starved and restricted yourself. Then you get out of control and start binge eating, and then the weight goes back up to what it was or even more. Then again, the closed circle, of dieting begins, because you feel overweight again. You want to feel slimmer, you want to lose some weight, you go on another diet, and so the circle continues. So yes, so it's just perpetual dieting circle. And most occasions, the people that diet actually put on more weight after the diet than what they initially had, and will understand the way the body and the body mechanism works regarding this. So it'll make a clearer picture of why that happens. So what we really need is a paradigm shift about how to view food. If you watched any of my other videos on my channel, you hear me saying at the end all the time, food is fuel. So that's how we should view the food. And we should forget naming good foods and bad foods. Food is fuel. So basically anything, any kind of foods, we shouldn't demonize them or make it better or worse. We should look at food as fuel, and we'll go through it of why we shouldn't demonize specific foods and how we'll make peace with food and so on. But yeah, so we need a complete paradigm shift to change the way we think about food in general. So the authors of the book gave us 4 steps how to change our paradigms, how to shift our paradigms about dieting. So step 1, recognize and acknowledge the harm, both biological health and psychological, that dieting does. So health-wise or biological damage that the diet is doing to your body is that whenever you restrict yourself, the body kind of switches on the mechanism of starvation, where it starts adapting to it. And actually, once you start eating again, they produce twice the amount of enzymes that are creating and storing fat in your body for future starvation periods. So that's kind of what happens. You literally doubling your fat storing capacity if you're restricting yourself for periods of time. It might not happen for one day, for one meal, for maybe it's a couple of days, but if you constantly restricting your calorie intake, food intake for a period of a few days, once you start eating again, then the body doubles the amount of fat storing enzymes. So that is very, very important to realize, and that's how people that actually, after the dieting, they put on weight much quicker than, when they initially had the weight, and the weight goes even higher than what they had it initially. So, that's one reason to explain why that happens. Also, another adaptation that your body does, it actually decreases your metabolism rate. So that way it makes sure it doesn't use up your energy, the energy from the food, so quickly. So if it feels that it's kind of being starved, it's not getting enough food or enough fuel for your energy needs, then it slows down your metabolism, to the point where you're using less energy, but that way you can then pile on more weight after you increase the food again. And apparently these effects of slow down metabolism can last for years. So in the book, the authors mentioned The Biggest Loser, the show. After that, they've actually done some studies, or followed some people that went on the show, lost a lot of weight, and after their metabolism did not recover to their initial stages of the speed of metabolism didn't recover for 6 years. Can you imagine? 6 years it took for the metabolism to go back to the same level that what initially was before The Biggest Loser show. So the damage or slowed down metabolism can last for very, very long time, even for years, after you do the diet. That's why the diets are so actually detrimental and so unhealthy. As well, yo-yo dieting is not only bad for metabolism and fat storage, like I mentioned, but also it changes body shape. If people are doing a lot of yo-yo dieting, losing weight and gaining it back quickly, and doing that in a few cycles, they are changing body shape. They're starting to gain a lot more weight around the midriff area, so kind of around your waist area. You get like bellies, and just kind of like what you call them, I call them swimming rafts, so basically, and that is a very dangerous area to have more fat, because it's around all your vital organs. So that is definitely not healthy. And then they also mention some studies where they followed, like, I think 3,200 men and women, I believe, for a period of 30 years. And the people that have lost and gained some weight within like those years, actually died and had heart attacks more than the people that didn't, that kept the stable weight. So there's something to say there about that too. So it's very, very interesting how much damage actually lasting damage dieting can do. So this is physiological, but then we want to talk about psychological damage, because that is the damage that maybe gets less noticed, but it's just as bad as the biological damage. So there's so many eating disorders that actually stem from the dieting, where especially teenage women, they start restricting calories, start kind of either bulimia or the anorexia or bulimia, where they eat, but then they feel the need to obviously throw up everything they've eaten, just to kind of get rid of the calories they've eaten. So all kinds of eating disorders stem from dieting. The newest one of these is orthorexia, where people are just overly militant, what they're eating, that they're eating clean foods, that they're eating natural foods, not an ounce of fat, not an ounce of this or that, so That's obviously, it's not quite fully considered as a proper disorder, but I think more and more, people kind of get this diagnosis of orthorexia nervosa, I think it's called. So yeah, so different eating disorders stem from the dieting culture and dieting mentality. And then of course there's this feeling out of control. If you've been on a diet and then you start getting those cravings and you succumb to them, and then you start binging like you've never binged before. You eat a few tubs of ice cream until you're sick. You just keep on eating junk, or just keep on eating. You can't stop eating foods because that's what your body does after a period of restriction. It physiologically triggers you into kind of eating more, so then you're much easier to overeat. So, and then you feel out of control. So that's what dieting does psychologically. It makes you feel out of control, like you can't be trusted with foods. It makes you feel like a failure, that you don't have willpower, that you just can't stick to something. It literally makes you feel miserable. And your self-worth and self-belief goes down as well. So that is very, very damaging. The psychological damage, from dieting is very real as well. Step 2, you need to be aware of the diet kind of thinking, mentality, and to recognize when it creeps in and stop it. So, have you ever, if you've been on a diet, you probably think, oh, I don't have willpower. Okay? And that is so false. We think that, when we start craving something and we cave in and eat that food, we don't have willpower. That is not right, and it's not true, because our body has an actual physical mechanism where it switches on the cravings. If your body has been deprived of something, it's switches that switch where you literally can't avoid it. You might have the most willpower in the world, but eventually you will cave in and you will start eating, because our body is just made that way. So you have to forget all the notions you have about willpower, because this is not true, this is false, and this is kind of making you feel bad and insecure about yourself. Another thing is, forget about being obedient. Some people kind of try and please others, or some maybe well-wishing family members would tell you, oh, don't, maybe refrain from eating that, or honey, you shouldn't be eating that or the other. They might be wishing you well, knowing that you're trying to slim down, or that you're trying to kind of not gain as much weight. However, what it can trigger in you is forget you mentality. I could say a stronger word, but I'll not say that now. But basically it triggers, forget you. I'm gonna eat whatever I please. Nobody's gonna tell me what to eat, because this kind of feeling is to reinstate your autonomy, because everybody wants to be autonomous and to kind of manage their life how they feel like managing it. So if people start telling you what to eat, how to eat, where to eat, what to do, you get that, or forget you, and try and do kind of in spite of it. So you try to do the opposite thing that what they told you, and then you end up overeating. Or some people sneak eat. So for example, you might put on like a healthy eating face in front of people, but when you come back home, you tuck into a tub of ice cream, you binge on snacks and so on. So you kind of are secret eating. So yeah, so that is another very dangerous mentality to kind of catch yourself doing, and understand why it's happening. It's because your body is being deprived of food and fuel. And another thing is, this kind of way of being, it triggers you feeling like a failure. So if you feel like you haven't got willpower, that you can't quite stick to something, you will start feeling like a failure, like you can't control yourself, you can't trust yourself with food, and that is all very false as well, and it's very, very dangerous. So it's very important to catch yourself doing that and to realize that you are doing this. Now, step 3. Once you've kind of realized that you're doing some of the dieting behaviors and how to spot them, then you need to get rid of tools of dieting. So the main tool being scales. A lot of people have scales to weigh themselves regularly, but scales do not show the true picture a lot of times, and it should not even be a tool to assess your weight, because you should gauge of how well you're eating, how well your body is doing, by how well you feel, how much satisfaction you get from food, how much pleasure, and how well you feel in your own skin. So scale should not be an appliance to gauge any of that. Well, it can't. All it can tell you is some few numbers, but those numbers can fluctuate between you losing. So for example, sometimes you see like you lost 2 or 3 pounds in a day or 2 days. A lot of times that could be actually you losing water, losing water by kind of starving yourself, and your body eats into your muscle. Kind of talked about that in the next video, but once you starve yourself, your body needs the fuel, so it starts breaking down your muscle, and because the muscle is full of water, it releases a lot of water, and that's how you could lose some pounds very quickly. But that is not the healthy way to do it at all. That should not be happening. Or sometimes you might have a plateau of weight, or even gain some weight, because for example you've eaten something very salty, and salt tends to keep and hold the water. It bloats your cells. Your cells need to dilute that salt, so they keep the water, retain the water more. So that could be that bloating and the retained water from you eating a salty meal, for example, the night before. So scales can't tell you much. And BMI, the number that you're supposed to kind of work out whether you're obese or you're okay. Athletes, for example, like very muscular people, their BMI is off the scale, but they're not obese, because the muscle is actually heavier than the fat. But BMI does not take that into consideration. So yeah, just forget about scales. Do not weigh yourself, and just we'll follow these a few other all of these 10 principles, and you understand how you should gauge how you should be feeling, how you should be eating. But scale should not be one of these measurement tools. And if you still counting calories or macros, carbohydrates, or anything like that, just chuck those apps out, delete them. You don't need them. You should be listening to your own body and hunger signals and satiety signals, which we'll discuss in later principles. But counting calories, counting macros should not be any of your tools that you keep track of your weight, basically. And step number 4, be kind to yourself. You did not arrive to this place after 1 day or 2 days of kind of dieting and following the wrong advice. So don't expect for you to become an intuitive eater overnight, right? It will take a lot of attempts and missteps and trial and error to get to the place where you trust your body, you trust your signals, you reestablish that communication with all your systems, and truly become an intuitive eater. So it will definitely not happen overnight. I know I've got still quite a few things to work on. The speed of eating, I'm not truly enjoying my food, I just inhale it. A lot of times I'm kind of not mindful of that I'm eating too much, I can't stop in time, I overeat. And sometimes I kind of crave more food even though I know I'm full. All of these different things you will go through, kind of mistakes and errors and trials, but it's all good. It's all relearning to become intuitive eater, because naturally we are born as intuitive eaters, and we're just trying to go back to that place where we trust our bodies and our signals again. So that is it. And in the next principles, in the next videos, we're going to be exploring what are those cues, because intuitive eater has his tools, his or her tools, but they are not outside measures, but they're intuitive and internal clues, and we're going to be going through that in our next videos. So I hope you enjoyed this segment. I hope you're going to join me for the rest of the videos. Give me a thumbs up if you like the video. If you're new to the channel, welcome, and subscribe for more videos like this, and also vegan recipes on Wednesdays and Sundays. And as always, remember, food is fuel, so be mindful of what you put in the body. Until next time.